They insult you, you react. From that moment, you're under their control. You think you're defending yourself, but all they see is you choking on their opinion. Tommy Shelby never rushes to respond. They call him dangerous, unpredictable, cold. But he never explains himself because he doesn't need to. That's not silence, that's power. Modern society taught you to speak up, to clarify, to say, that's not who I am. But Machiavelli would laugh. He knew the more you explain, the more they own the narrative. Tommy doesn't play that game. When someone throws words at him, he pauses. He lights a cigarette. He lets the tension build while the other person starts to doubt their own frame. It's not just for drama, it's a calculated refusal to validate the accusation. And that's your reversal. Don't argue with liars. Don't correct fools. Don't defend your name to people who already decided what they want to believe. Like Tommy, let your silence humiliate their certainty. Let your stillness throw off their rhythm. Because once you speak, they'll twist your words. But when you say nothing, you become unreadable, and the unreadable man never loses. Have you ever felt the urge to reply instantly when someone questioned your character? To defend yourself? To say, that's not what I meant, or you misunderstood me? You weren't protecting yourself. You were panicking, because silence made you feel invisible. This is where most people break, not because of the insult, but because of the silence after. In Peaky Blinders, when Tommy is accused, whether by enemies, police, or family, he rarely explains. He locks eyes, says nothing, sometimes just walks away. And what happens? They start talking more, they get louder, they over-explain to fill the silence he left. That's non-reactivity, not from ignorance but from control. Machiavelli warned, if you must respond, delay. Let their words dry in the wind before you answer, if you answer at all. Most people can't wait that long. They feel they'll be misjudged, misunderstood, cancelled, so they react fast and make it worse. Let's break down the lie. People don't react to fix truth. They react to be seen. You text back immediately. You post stories just to prove you're fine. You defend your side, not because it matters, but because being silent feels like disappearing. Tommy knows this. He understands that nothing terrifies people more than not knowing what you're thinking. So he lets them project. Is he angry? Is he plotting? Is he done with me? He doesn't answer. He watches them spiral into paranoia. This is how the weak collapse. Not from being shouted at, but from hearing nothing back. So next time you're attacked, don't reach for your voice. Reach for your silence. Because Tommy's not calm by accident. He's calm because he knows what Machiavelli knew. The one who reacts first already surrendered. Tommy Shelby doesn't win arguments. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't even interrupt. He waits, listens, pauses. And somewhere between his silence and their overreaction, he wins. That's not passivity. That's cold strategy. It's a refusal to play by rules written by weaker men, the ones who need to be loud to feel in control. Machiavelli wrote, whoever sets the frame owns the outcome, and silence lets you steal the frame without saying a word. Imagine this, workplace. You're in a team meeting. Someone says, I just feel like Sarah hasn't been carrying her weight lately. Everyone turns, looks at you. Most people would panic. That's not true. I've been doing A, B, and C. But the Machiavellian, like Tommy, she just says, duly noted, or better, nothing at all. Now everyone looks back at the accuser and wonders why they're so emotional about it. The burden of proof flips instantly. Or in love, he says, you're not the same anymore. I can feel you pulling away. A weak response. No, I've just been stressed. I didn't mean to ignore your texts. But a cold one. She smiles, raises an eyebrow, and says, maybe you're just not reading me right anymore. She doesn't defend, she doesn't deny. She lets his insecurity do the talking. Just like Tommy, who often says less when stakes are highest, not to escape, but to let others unravel themselves. Now let's take it to online life. Someone posts a vague, bitter story clearly about you. You know it's bait. You're tempted to reply, clarify, correct. But here's the game. The more you speak, the more they cut your words apart. The more you defend, the more you look guilty. The more you explain your side, the more you become a side character in their narrative. Silence robs them of that script. It leaves them alone on stage, talking louder, posting more, sounding unstable. And that's what Tommy understands. You don't have to speak to control the scene. You just have to make them speak too much. Here's why cold strategy works. Silence breaks rhythm. It confuses people who rely on emotional feedback. It makes them question the ground they stand on. Machiavelli called it positional leverage, letting others step forward so you can see where they're vulnerable. And once they speak too much, you don't even need to respond. You just aim and deliver one quiet blow. So next time someone accuses you, pushes you, tries to force a reaction, don't explain, don't rush, don't step into their arena. Let them come to you. Let them stumble. Let them bleed energy while you conserve yours. Because the man who doesn't respond isn't losing. He's letting you expose yourself. Tommy Shelby doesn't need your reaction. He doesn't ask, "Do you understand me?" He doesn't wonder what people think when he walks out of the room. Because he knows something most people never learn. The need to be understood is the first weakness they'll use against you. Let's break it down. Why do most people panic when someone says nothing? Why do they send follow-up messages after being left on scene? Why do they write paragraphs after one vague post? It's not because they're angry, it's because they're afraid of not being seen. This isn't ego, it's biology. Thousands of years ago, if your tribe ignored you, you didn't just lose attention, you lost protection. Silence wasn't annoying, it was a death sentence. So our brain evolved to treat non-response as danger. Even now, being ghosted triggers the same panic as being abandoned in the wild. That's why you freak out when they stop texting. Not because you love them, but because your nervous system thinks you're dying. Now watch what happens when Tommy goes silent. Someone accuses him, threatens him, even begs for answers. He lights a cigarette, looks away, says nothing. And what do? They get louder. They repeat themselves. They try to explain their own accusation because the silence forces them to feel their own uncertainty. That's what Machiavelli knew too. You control others not by strength, but by controlling what they fear. And nothing scares the emotional mind more than being ignored. Let's zoom in on real life. You don't like their post. They notice. You don't comment. They post again randomly. You don't reply. Suddenly, their captions start to sound personal. They don't want truth. They want recognition. He sends, "I guess you're too busy these days." Translation, "Your silence is killing me, and I need you to notice me noticing it." But if you say nothing, he spirals, because in his mind, silence feels like abandonment. And in that collapse, he reveals who holds the frame. That's the human pattern. We mistake silence as judgment. We assume withdrawal means guilt. We rush to speak not to clarify the facts, but to prove we still matter. And the one who stays calm, who lets silence stretch until the other person breaks, he wins. Just like Tommy. So next time someone withholds attention from you, don't chase it. And next time someone panics when you go quiet, don't speak to comfort them. Because if your silence makes them spiral, it means you were holding the leash the whole time. Most people, when confronted, take one of two paths. They defend, they retreat. But Tommy Shelby does neither. He inverts. He turns pressure into pause, accusation into opportunity, and instead of reacting, he forces others to reveal more than they intended. That's what Machiavelli meant when he warned, the wise prince never fights head-on. He turns the enemy's blow into his own advantage. Watch what Tommy does when someone calls him out. He doesn't yell, he doesn't explain. He lets the tension sit, then says something completely unexpected. "I hear your concern. Or worse, that's one way to see it. Not denial, not approval, just ambiguity weaponized. The enemy expects resistance, but what they get is reflection, and that breaks their footing. Your colleague implies you're lazy in front of your boss. Instead of arguing, you nod. Interesting. I'll bring the numbers next time. Boom. You just flip the frame. Now they look petty and you look composed. That's inversion. They shout, "You never show up for me." Most reply, "I'm trying, can't you see that?" Tommy would look at them and say, "Maybe you've been looking in the wrong direction." Now they're scrambling to justify. You didn't validate their guilt weapon. You turned it and handed it back. That's the move. What does inversion actually do? Disorients people prepare for fight or flight, not mystery. Deflates by not resisting. You deny them the satisfaction of dominance. Reframes you no longer look like the target. They look unstable. Machiavelli said, "A prince must know how to act the beast and the fox." Tommy is the fox. He doesn't block the hit. He lets it pass, then stabs from the shadows of your own punch. Someone comments, "This is the dumbest video I've ever seen." Don't reply with facts. Don't defend your view. Reply, "I'm glad it triggered something in you." That's the inversion. They came for war. You turned it into a mirror. The world trains you to react. Tommy trains you to reverse. Because in any interaction, whoever frames first usually loses. It's the one who reframes quietly, strategically, without raising a hand who ends up with the last word. So next time someone pushes, accuses, corners you, don't fight, don't run, flip. Because power isn't in defense, it's in reversal. Just like Tommy, just like Machiavelli, Tommy Shelby doesn't walk into a room and announce his arrival. He doesn't perform dominance. He doesn't smile to be liked. He doesn't explain to be understood. And yet when he enters, the room adjusts. People speak more carefully. They breathe a little slower. Their voices lower. That's not charisma. That's aura. And it begins with silence. Most people associate silence with weakness, with uncertainty, with lack of things to say. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. Silence is not absence, it is control without display. Silence creates tension, and tension commands attention. Look at what happens when Tommy enters a hostile space. He doesn't lead with threat, he doesn't respond to provocation. He listens, he calculates, and the longer he stays quiet, the more everyone else rushes to fill the void. That's the trick. Silence makes them expose themselves. The loudest person in the room isn't the most confident, it's the most afraid of being invisible. You walk into a room full of people you don't know. They talk, laugh, joke until they notice your quiet presence. You don't interrupt. You observe. And one of them turns, nervously. "Hey, you okay?" You're really quiet. That's it. That's when you've won. Because your silence is now noticed and therefore powerful. In relationships, silence creates gravity. After an argument, the average person rushes to text, "I didn't mean it that way, can we talk?" But Tommy? He waits. And the longer the silence stretches, the more the other person replays their own words, until they break first. This is the power of the aura. It's not just about not speaking. It's about making your silence louder than their words. A silence so dense, it forces reflection. A silence so stable, it makes noise look like panic. Here's how to build that aura. Speak less than you know. Move slower than they expect. Wait longer than they're comfortable. Silence, done well, creates frame control, the invisible hierarchy that determines who leads and who follows. And that's why Tommy always wins the room before saying a word. Machiavelli would say, "He who speaks first in negotiation often reveals his position. He who speaks last already knows the outcome." So stop rushing to respond. Stop fearing the gap between sentences. Stop over-explaining, because in that gap, you control the temperature. You shift the weight. And those who feel that pressure, they'll either align with you or collapse before you. Don't raise your voice. Don't fight for attention. Just walk in, say little, and hold your ground. Because silence is a throne. And the longer you sit on it, the more they crown you in their own mind. You ever notice what happens when a room watches Tommy Shelby? No one tells them to be quiet, no one demands attention, but suddenly every eye is on him. They want to know. What's he thinking? What will he say next? Who is he really? That's the viral loop, not online. In real life, in real people's minds. The loop begins when silence creates curiosity, then curiosity creates projection, and projection turns into obsession. Tommy doesn't chase attention, he withholds it, and in doing so, he triggers the most powerful force in social psychology. When people don't understand you, they start building stories, they guess your motive, they replay your words, they obsess over your silence. That's the loop. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by the eyes than by the hands, because everyone sees but few touch." In modern terms, people don't care who you are, they care who they think you are. Let's make this real. Someone posts once, no follow-up, no caption, just one cryptic sentence. Some people are about to learn the hard way. No name, no detail, but you read it 5 times. You scroll through the comments, you DM your friend, "Is this about you?" That's viral, not because it says a lot, but because it says almost enough. He walks into a room, lights a cigarette, doesn't even look at you. Now your mind works over time. Did I offend him? What does he know? Is he planning something? He doesn't have to lift a finger. This is the trap most people miss. They think control is about power, but the highest form of control is making people give it to you willingly. And that starts with restraint. Want to make people think of you after you've left. Don't tell them everything. Don't respond too fast. Don't let your emotions narrate your story. Just give them fragments, because once someone starts imagining you, they can't stop. And now, they finish the sentence you never said. They defend you before you're accused. They chase clarity you'll never offer. That's the loop. Tommy doesn't build it. He lets them build it around him. He just stays still. And like a black hole in the middle of their emotional galaxy, he pulls everyone in without moving. Machiavelli would smile, because he knew, if you can make them curious, you can make them loyal. But if you make yourself too available, too visible, too open, you lose the tension. And tension is what binds them to you. So from now on, leave more unsaid. Let their imagination do the work. Let the silence echo long after the door closes, because what you don't say is what they'll never stop thinking about. Tommy Shelby doesn't explode. He watches others do it for him. While his enemies scream, shake, accuse, cry, he lights a cigarette and waits, because he knows a secret Machiavelli understood deeply. He who angers you conquers you. So what happens when you don't react? They collapse. Not physically, emotionally, psychologically. Their mask slips, their story cracks, their tone changes, and they expose themselves completely. Watch how it plays out. A rival tries to bait Tommy in a crowded room, throws insults, mocks his past. Tommy doesn't flinch. He lets the man raise his voice, raise his hands, raise his heart rate, until he stumbles, says one sentence too far, reveals one truth too raw. Boom, he's finished himself, and all Tommy had to do was stay quiet long enough. This is the strategy. Let emotion make them their own assassin. Your co-worker tries to provoke you during a team meeting. They say, "Some of us actually pull our weight around here." Everyone looks at you, waiting for the reaction. But you smile, look down, say nothing. Now they look petty. They look aggressive. They look insecure. You, untouched. They scream, "You're just like everyone else. Cold, distant, fake. Don't explain, don't beg. Just pause." Then softly say, "I see." They'll implode. Why? Because they came to war, and you gave them emptiness. No resistance equals no purpose. And without purpose, The emotional fire eats them, not you. This is what most never learn. The people who try to control others with emotion can't even control their own. So let them overstep. Let them shout. Let them try to expose you. Because in doing so, they reveal everything about themselves. Machiavelli would nod. The best revenge is not to resemble your enemy. Don't shout back, don't write long texts, don't clap back in the comments, just stand still. Let the world watch who really collapses. Someone says, "You're fake. You only post to look perfect." You could argue, you could explain, or you could reply, "I hope you find what you're looking for." Let their rage hit empty space. Let them tire themselves out. You've already won. The game is simple. If they lose control first, they lose the frame. And if they lose the frame, they lose the war. From now on, master the pause. Use silence like a weapon. Observe their explosion with cold detachment. Because the more unstable they look, the more powerful you become. You don't need to crush them. Just let them collapse. All on their own. Most people chase power by pretending to have it. Louder voice, bigger titles, fancy suits, motivational quotes. But Tommy Shelby, he never chases power. He just acts like it was his from the beginning. Why? Because real power doesn't announce itself, it radiates. Watch Tommy enter a room. He doesn't speak first, he doesn't shake hands, he doesn't smile, but everyone tenses up. Why? Because power isn't about how many people listen to you. It's about how uncomfortable people get when you say nothing. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But modern society flipped that. We chase likes, followers, applause. We confuse visibility with authority. But real power is the opposite. The more they know about you, the more they can control you. That's why Tommy keeps things hidden. His plans encrypted, his emotions flat, his intentions a blank slate. And that confuses people, so they give him the one thing you can't buy: caution. There's always someone who says too much. "I've been working late. I'm trying really hard. I hope I get promoted." And then there's the quiet one. No complaints, no self-promotion. But when they speak, the whole table goes silent. Guess who gets listened to? Not the loud one. The one who made power look like a given, not a request. If you always explain yourself, justify, chase clarity, you give them the upper hand. Because now they know what gets under your skin, what you fear, what you crave. And once they know that, they own you. But if you stay unreadable, they project, they wonder, they respect. Not because you forced it, but because you controlled the flow of information. Power isn't domination, it's leverage. It's what happens when people adjust their tone around you, second-guess themselves after every message. Ask others what you really meant, and you didn't say a word. Social media example. The one who posts everything gets ignored. The one who disappears for weeks becomes mysterious. Suddenly people say, "Did something happen? What's he planning? Why so quiet?" That's power, not attention. Tension. So here's Machiavelli's real rule. He who controls perception controls reality. Don't just seek approval. Make your absence louder than their presence. Make your silence speak more than their shouting. From now on, withhold more than you reveal. Let mystery do the talking. Let presence do the persuading. Because real power isn't about looking powerful. It's about making others feel smaller in your silence. And when they start to adjust themselves around you, you've already won. Picture this. A long table. Men with power sit, boasting of victories, titles, speeches, and at the end, one man, silent, smoking, watching. He hasn't said a word the whole meeting. But when the vote is cast, every eye turns to him. He nods once, and that becomes the decision. That's Tommy Shelby. And more importantly, that's what you could be. Not by copying his accent, his suit, or his violence, but by mastering what he mastered: the power of stillness, the gravity of presence, the art of saying everything without saying anything. Most people fight to be remembered. They yell, they flaunt, they chase attention hoping it will become legacy. But here's the paradox. The one who doesn't beg to be seen is the one they never forget. Think about the last time someone shook your world. Was it their words, or the way they looked at you without flinching? Was it their explanations, or their ability to not explain? Was it their charisma, or the fact that they didn't need any? Now look at the world you live in. Everyone talking, everyone proving, everyone sharing everything. It's exhausting. And in that noise, the quiet one becomes legendary. Because their absence becomes rare. Their opinions become sacred. Their legacy becomes earned. In your life, there's someone you remember. Maybe they mentored you. Maybe they rejected you. Maybe they said something so sharp, it's still echoing years later. And yet they weren't loud. They weren't always there. But when they spoke, it landed like thunder. And when they left, they took the air with them. That's legacy. And it was built in silence. Machiavelli never chased fame. He wrote in exile. He observed kings while living like a ghost. And yet, 500 years later, we quote him, not the kings. Why? Because truth spoken rarely hits harder than noise repeated endlessly. Legacy isn't what you say, it's how people act after you've left the room. So what will yours be? Will they remember you as the one who tried too hard, or the one whose silence changed the temperature of the room? From now on, build your presence, not your performance. Cultivate the weight of your words, and never over-explain what your energy already told them. Because in the end, the leaders who last are the ones who mastered silence and made it echo. You reached the end of this video. You followed the thread through silence, strategy, control, and command. Now pause, look around. You'll start noticing things you didn't before. The ones who talk too much trying to prove they're in charge. The ones who chase validation, needing to be seen, heard, liked. The ones who can't stay calm, exposing their weakness the moment tension rises. You used to admire them. Now, you see through them. This is the shift. You're no longer just trying to be confident. You're no longer hoping to be respected. You've entered a different game, the Machiavellian game, where the loudest person always loses, where emotion is a liability, where silence is not passive, it's lethal. Tommy Shelby never said, "Respect me." He just made people nervous when he entered and haunted them long after he left. That's how real influence works. It stays in the room even when you're not in it. So from here on out, don't raise your voice, raise your presence. Don't chase people, let them wonder. Don't defend yourself, let their assumptions rot in silence. You don't need to play their game, because you've learned how to control the frame. And once you own the frame, you own the narrative. And once you own the narrative, they don't matter anymore. Think of all the things you used to explain. Think of all the people you tried to impress. Think of all the times you doubted your strength because you were too busy seeking approval. Let that die here, not with tears, not with rage, but with a nod and a walk away. Those who understand power never announce it. The next time someone tests you, don't flinch, don't speak. Look them in the eye. Let them collapse into their own noise. Then disappear. No warning, no goodbye, no emotional closure. Because the coldest exits are the ones that say, "I never needed this. You needed me." That's what power looks like. That's what strategy feels like. That's what legacy sounds like. Quiet, final, unshakable. Now go. Don't share this video. Don't explain it. Don't recommend it. Become it.